Now, we're down to the last bits of random. We got 5 more random shows here, and then Maid in Abyss Season 2 at the very end. So let's see what we get in these last 5 random shows. It's going to be 2. Love All Play. This is a tennis show, I think. Let's give it a shot.
You know, everyone's always asking who's greenlighting all these isekai anime. Why are we getting so many of these like low effort, barely put together isekai anime lately? No one seems to ask this about sports anime though, and that is a much bigger question in my mind. I watched about 6 minutes of Love All Play and I felt nothing. I felt not a single shred of emotion from this show whatsoever. It is the most bland looking thing I've seen in a very long time, at least for this genre. The characters are so plastic and uninteresting. The animation is like not bad, but not good. It's like it's so perfectly average. And this is a 2-core series. Who greenlit this for 2 cores? I'm pretty sure I've asked this question already on this fucking show, but who is greenlighting all these 2-core sports anime? Where's the market for this? I'm genuinely curious. Is it the sports fans who are also anime fans? Is it the 700 badminton fans all watching this show? Is it because it has a bunch of cute muscular boys in it and there's like a big female demographic or a gay demographic? What is the target audience for this show? I don't understand. Like, who's watching this? I don't get it. I can at least understand, like, the isekai boom because we are in a boom right now. I can understand, I know where that came from. I don't understand how we still get all of these completely forgettable sports anime. I don't get it. Let's move on.
Alright, Love All Play is done. Got 4 left to go. Let's see what we get next. 3 is Hanabi-chan. I don't know what this is. I think it's a sport or a short series. Let's find out.
You know, there is something incredibly ironic and also kind of painful about the fact that Gaina, which I believe is the studio that basically forms the hollow shell of what was formerly Gainax, after completely draining themselves dry and selling off all of their properties, sending them off to the wind just to stay afloat, only to close down anyway and reopen under a bunch of new names, to then go on and make an anime about a pachinko machine that becomes an anime girl. That's more of a joke than anything written in this show. Yeah, this is a low effort TV short. Not funny, not all that good looking. Let's move on.
Alright, Hanabi-chan off the list. 3 to go before Maid in Abyss. Let's see. 1. Black Summoner. Wonder if it's isekai. Let's find out.
I got nothing. I got nothing to say about this one. There's nothing here. I'm tired of this. I'm going to sleep. Next.
I am so tired of isekai anime with literally nothing to say. Black Summoner's off the list. 2 more randos to go. One's an isekai, one's a fetish. Come on, show me fetish. 2. The maid I hired recently is mysterious. Okay. Let's give it a shot.
You know, I was kind of exaggerating when I said that the maid I hired recently is mysterious is a fetish anime. But I kind of wish it was one now. Because I feel nothing from this show. Got about 9 minutes in. Didn't really laugh at anything. Didn't feel endeared towards any of the characters. Didn't feel strongly about the animation. It's not bad, but it's not really impressive in any way. This is just another super mid Silverlink show. What a shame. Let's move on.
Alright. Maid can come off the list. Not really a need for the randomizer at this point, so let's just jump into Parallel World Pharmacy. See if an isekai can sneak in a win before we jump into the finale.
Alright. Last isekai of the season. I just finished Parallel World Pharmacy. Yes, I finished it. This show's good. This show is just good. Kind of a... Now, I'm not on the isekai hating bandwagon. As you can probably see, there are quite a few isekai that I do like. Some that I would even consider favorites. So, it's just the mass inundation of really bad and just really mediocre ones that I have a problem with. This one is at least a step or two above the mediocre category. I very much enjoyed this one for quite a lot of reasons. For one, it treads a fine line on the self-insert power fantasy stuff. Like, it's still, the main character is still overpowered. He can still punch anything into oblivion. He can still defeat whatever enemy comes up. He can still defeat whatever problem is in his way with minimal effort. Well, not even gonna say minimal effort, but minimal thoughts as to whether or not he's going to succeed. But what makes this a little different is the focus on medicine and the focus on molecular composition, because this is an anime where a doctor, like a seasoned doctor in his 40s, I think, dies from overwork and gets sent to a parallel world where he's reincarnated as the son of a pharmacist, or a pharmaceutist, I think is the word they use. I'm not sure. I'm just going to call him a doctor. And that just gives him access to the medical world so that he can spread his modern medicine knowledge to this medieval setting. And his acute knowledge of the molecular structure of different compounds and different medicines and all that is how he becomes overpowered. Now, would the average doctor know the exact structures of different, of hundreds, possibly thousands of different medical compounds off the top of his head? Maybe. I would have to ask my cousin, who runs several hospitals and got her master's in molecular biology or something like that. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll have to ask her if she could draw the molecular formulas for different compounds off the top of her head. But we'll just go ahead and say that this guy can do it because he's super smart. And that creates some really interesting... It's not just punch your way out of a problem. There are very few action-centric things in this story, and I think that takes a lot of the power fantasy edge away from this series, because it's not just him beating up a bunch of bad guys. It's him solving problems and going out of his way to solve problems for the good of everyone and not just for the good of himself, because he is a doctor and he wants to help people. And more specifically, he wants to help people because he lost his sister to a tumor at a young age. And so that's been like his motivation for his whole life. And so to be reincarnated in this fantasy world with a younger sister gives him the impetus to really do as much as he can for this world that doesn't have as much knowledge about medicine. Like we get like classic medical things. We get tuberculosis. We get what was the second arc about? The second arc, I don't think the second arc had a particular... Well, the second arc had like the toxins that come from makeup compounds in the early days, like all the heavy metals and stuff. The third arc, as cliche as it was, it's the Black Death. And I saw it coming a mile away, but I'm like, fuck it, I'm in. I want to see you solve the Black Death. Let's do this. And when they introduced Mold Lady, I'm like, oh, you're going to be important. I know how this works. And it was just so cool seeing... There was a brief point in time where I wanted to be a doctor before I realized I am way too squeamish. But I still find medicine and biology so incredibly fascinating. So, just the strategies, I guess, just the thinking parts of this show are so incredibly fun and interesting. And also, like, just the fact that he genuinely wants to help people is just so nice. Now, that's a lot of... To be fair, a lot of isekai protagonists are like that. They genuinely want to help people. Not all of them, but a lot of them are like that. But this one in particular has a really great motivation for helping people and the specific way of helping people, being a doctor and advancing medicine. It just feels more noble than the other isekai of this ilk. And there's a lot to talk about with this show. Another thing that kind of takes the power fantasy edge off this is there is like no romance or harem elements whatsoever. None of that is in this. There are cute girls in this, and occasionally, very occasionally, there is some mild fan service, but there is no, like, harem of girls chasing after the MC's dick in this. Mostly because the MC is 10 years old. Though that has not stopped isekai in the past. I take that back. That is not exactly a factor that would stop it. But it's just in terms of like characterization and character relationships, it's a very wholesome series with shockingly no problematic elements in sight. Which I did not expect. What I expected was like immediate jump to adulthood after the reincarnation, like laying the groundwork, but no, it sticks with him as a 10-year-old. So that was kind of fun. And just even aside from the main character, just the general cast of characters is really fun. The teacher character was a little over the top at first, but they mellowed her out. Pretty quickly. So that was a relief. The way Pharma is the main character, the way Pharma relates to his dad, Bruno, as a fellow physician, as a fellow doctor, is really cool, and the different conversations that they have about medicine. And like you really get the sense that Bruno actually is an accomplished physician and he knows what he's talking about. Um, it's just so good. And even like some of the bit characters, like episode 8 in particular, was just really good in the sense of understanding medicine and how medical care relates to different classes of people. Like it's basically like the guild of commoner pharmacists are trying to like just kick pharma out of the city because he's just this, they think he's this like nobleman playing pharmacist who's just going to get bored after a while, and if his business crushes their businesses and then he just like fucks off and leaves, what's going to happen to everyone else? And you really get the sense that a lot of these people have been fucked over by rich people and their healthcare standards in the past. And so I can't blame these people for as barefacedly noble as Pharma's actions are. I can't blame this guild for being wary of him and just not wanting him around at all because they have been fucked over in the past. As an American, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be fucked over by healthcare. So that episode was just so damn good. I'm pretty sure I almost cried during that episode. And even for as overpowered as the main character is, the show is still really good at tension because he doesn't save everyone. Some people die. Some people die before he can get to them. Some people die because he got to them too late. Like, there are people who are just too far gone for him to save by the time he shows up. And that's, like, that, just putting that out there puts the idea in your mind of, I guess anything could happen in this series. He's not always going to win. And so, like, in the last episode, there's this super tense moment with Lotte and Cedric, some of his like employees, where like the bad guy attacks them, and you really don't know. Like it, I mean, you kind of know because the series has not been that dark up to this point, but it still puts the idea in your mind of, oh, can these characters die? Can this third string set of characters die even though I really like them? So it puts that idea in your mind, and these last sorry, I'm recording this after the slime video from a couple weeks ago, or whenever this is coming out, whatever. But yeah, it's just a really well constructed series. Definitely could have been a little better visually. It's not awful. I would say this is just straight average. Maybe just slightly below average. Although, again, in terms of like shot composition and like framing and all that, it is fairly competent and knows how to frame stuff effectively, especially in these last few episodes. And this is a Dio Media property, and I think it's, what's this guy's name? Shota Ibata, I think. He was the episode director for 2, 7, and 11. I don't quite remember 2, but 7 and 11 were very strong in just terms of like the storyboarding and the pacing of everything. And he's like a Dio Media mainstay. He handles the action scenes pretty well. Yeah, again, it could definitely look a lot better than it is. It's fairly plain overall, but there's nothing awful looking about it. And the character designs, are actually pretty appealing. Mostly the girl character designs. There's something about them that feels, for as basic as they are, there is something unique about them. Like the Queen Elizabeth, I think is her name in this. She is there's I don't think I've really seen a character design like her before, at least in the specifics of it, the way, the accents in her hair, the specific coloring of everything. Just makes her look so regal and powerful, but also very approachable in a sense. And she was definitely a fun character to interact with. Man, I really liked this show. I just wish if this show looked better, this would easily be like a light 8 or a decent 8. I don't know if it'll quite reach that, but yeah, had a fun time with this one. Would recommend this as one of the few isekai from 2022 that I enjoyed. Now let's go over to the list and figure out where to put it.
Alright, Parallel World Pharmacy is complete. And we're going to put it, where did I decide to put it? Right in here, in the top 25 for the year so far. Again, if it looked better, it would definitely be a lot higher, but it still gets a strong 7. Although I noticed I have quite a lot of strong 7s this year, so maybe I need to do some score reorientation. Although, again, I have over 50 anime on this list so far, so we'll see. But, in any case, we are down to the last show of the summer season, Maid in Abyss, Season 2. Let's fucking go!
That was a lot. Okay, so I just watched all of Maid in Abyss, Golden City of the Scorching Sun, the second season of Maid in Abyss, which is actually the third entry in the franchise because of the movie smashed in the middle of that. Now, I knew I was going to be in for a lot based on the first season and the movie, both of which had me sobbing uncontrollably at some point. So I kind of knew what I was in for with this new season. Now I will say, I did cry. I think I cried twice. Neither of them were on the same cathartic release as the first season or the movie, but I did cry. And I wanted to throw that out there. I think maybe it's just because I kind of expect this from Maid in Abyss by now, so I'm starting to grow accustomed to it. But I will. The moments again. If you're somehow made it this far into this video series and you don't know that these are spoiler heavy, there's your warning. This is spoiler heavy. Anyway, the two moments that I did cry, unsurprisingly, basically the same moment as season 1, where Nanachi lets go of Miti and Miti disappears. And then the second one was Vueko's death and Fapta coming to terms with that. So, by the way, while we're on her, Fapta, her voice actress, Misaki Kuno, fucking phenomenal performance. One of the best probably the best performance of the year, maybe. Outside of, like, I don't know who else. I forgot the name of the person who played Uta in the One Piece movie, but maybe it would be her. I don't know. But just the incredibly powerful performance that she gives in this. And apparently she's been around a while. She's been around since, like, season 1 Log Horizon. She plays Sarara in that. She's the red-haired little lolly in that. Apparently she's known for playing lollies. I looked up her repertoire after this, and she's played a lot of characters that I am very familiar with, so I'm surprised I did not recognize her voice at this point. But goddamn, is this her best performance or what? This was the just unbelievably raw emotion that she exudes, whether it's anger or immense sadness or joy and just general like happiness and aloofness, just pain. Holy shit. And that added so much to her character. This, I guess, fateful hero? Fateful antagonist? Depending on which side you view this from, because and that kind of leads into kind of what sets this season apart, at least in terms of how it's written, at least for me personally, is that this was just almost 24/7 dread. Like, well, not 24/7 dread. There are definitely some moments of levity, especially in the beginning, but there was just this constant sense of oppressiveness and this feeling that everything is going to snap at a moment's notice. Which is kind of definitely the point, I guess. This is like, you kind of know from the beginning that something, the city that that Riko and Reg and Nanachi land in, is so very obviously set up as being something that has an immense darkness at the center of it. And oh boy, is there a darkness at the center of it. And so you're just constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what this season felt like. Again, maybe it's just because I'm so used to what Maid in Abyss does at this point. But this was just tension and dread for so much of the series, and it became so... This became physically taxing to watch. Like, not in a bad way, in a good way. Like, this series drains me in a way that I don't think any other series can. Like, this series has such an immense, deep darkness to it that never feels edgy at all. Like, there's never anything in this that feels like it's pointing out and like, look how dark this is. Isn't this dark? It never feels like that ever. Like, it's never felt like that. And I'm happy that it's continuing to be like that. It never feels like it's just being dark for the sake of being dark. There is a set of rules that this world follows that if you break them, bad things happen to you. And it just keeps adding more and more rules to this world. And in both a narrative and thematic sense, it is just so immensely dark and all-encompassing, and it feels like you are being swallowed up by this setting, by this abyss, and you're just constantly fighting to get out. Again, in a good way. You're constantly fighting to get to the end, to see everything through and hope that everyone is still alive at the end of the series. So far, most of them are. Not all of them. A lot of really cool characters died by the end of this series, by the end of this season. And it was very sad. I think, like, Ma in particular, that was a rough one. I was just like, oh, that's unfortunate. And it was done in such a very tactful way of just Ma just kind of disappearing, and by this point it's already established what is happening to all of the residents of the city by that point. So you know what happened, but they don't show it because I think they understand that you're so attached to Ma by this point that would just be tactless. And again, it's not edgy. It's just fucking dark. Speaking of Ma, that was probably the moment near the beginning of the series where I was like, oh, this is going to hurt a lot. The moment where Ma accidentally like crushes Minya a little bit, and so all of Ma's possessions are taken away, and you see the doll just get shredded into nothing and disappear. That wrecked me emotionally, and that was only episode 3. Um, that's what this fucking series does. Um, it is a lot. Just like the ever expanding setting for this series. This setting is a fucking lot. I absolutely loved the setup, the way this city is set up, the rules for how money works. Honestly, I wish they would have had like a couple more bartering interactions just so you could see more of that, because that was just fascinating on its own. And it really digs into what is always been like the core theme of Maid in Abyss ever since Miti's death in season 1. It's never been subtle. It's never been subtle, which I'm fine with. I don't care whether a theme is subtle or not, as long as it's good and well executed. But the theme is always for Maid in Abyss has always been treasure, and more so figuring out what is truly precious to you. Unironically, Maid in Abyss is about the friends we made along the way. Unironically, for as fucking dark as this show is, it still has that shonen mindset at the center of this. Even though this is not shonen at all. I'm very positive that this is not a shonen series. But it has that stereotypical shonenness to it of the friends you made along the way. But it is probably the most sincere and heartfelt and deeply emotional version of that theme. This, like we had it with Nanachi and Miti in season 1. We had it with Riko and Prushka in the movie. And now we have it with pretty much everyone in this season, especially like in how just the core cast interacts, in particular, like with how Fapata and Reg interact, with how Vueko and Irumyui interact. That one goes pretty far beyond friendship, I would say, and more into like a mother-daughter relationship. But just precious things, precious connections, precious relationships, and what you will do to keep those relationships, what you will do to do right by those people that make you the happiest in the world. And God, I'm gonna need to watch this whole series a couple more times just to really dig deep into like the nitty gritty of it. Because while the core of the theme, the core idea is very obvious, the specifics of it, the like subtle nuances of it, of how different characters interact within that theme and how they display that theme in different ways, is very complex. So I'm definitely going to need to watch this one at least one more time, and hope that the dread does not kill me. Because there is so much. I keep repeating myself, the show's so goddamn dark. But another unique thing about this season is we actually get a ton of flashback stuff in this. There's basically a secondary narrative woven into this season aside from the present day narrative, where we see like the past in, I think it's like 150 years ago at one point they say, where Vueko and Irumyui and their team are basically going down into the abyss and trying to survive, and then they eventually set up this city out of the corpse of Irumyuui, which that whole segment was a lot. I think that was episodes 7 and 8, basically. Once they find, like, they've been weaving the narrative into it for for the most part up through episode 8, but it's 7 and 8 where they really get into the truly awful shit of Irumyuui. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who's, I guess, this barren child who's been cast out from her village. Basically gives birth to these weird abyss creatures every day that eventually die because they have no way to consume food or oxygen or water or anything. And so it's this constant trauma of birth and death and birth and death until she eventually just transforms into this living city. And the Wakyan, Wazukyan? I have no clue. The guy, the leader of the party, basically eventually using the corpses of her children to keep the party alive, and the regret that comes from that from everyone else involved. Belef, in particular, being just so incredibly distraught over that. This show is a lot. And of course, thus we come to Fapata, who might be my favorite character in the series up to this point. Just the last truly living child of Irumyuui, who basically inherited all of the knowledge of what happened to Irumyuui, except for Vueko, which was itself a very interesting thing that really got me to tear up at the end, where she's like, this was the one thing that Mom wanted to keep to herself, the most precious thing. That fucking killed me. But yeah, this notion of this basically revenge child, set up whose sole purpose is to destroy this village and take revenge for her mother. And in all honesty, I want to say she's totally within her rights to do that, because I think at one point everyone is kind of in on they know what they're doing to Irumyuui and they're just doing it in order to survive, which again, they're doing it to survive. So this is one of the most masterful things about Maid in Abyss, is it is completely morally gray. There is no morality here. There is no guiding compass of morals here. Which makes Riko such an interesting protagonist too, because she actually I wouldn't even say it makes her an interesting protagonist. It just makes her the best protagonist for the series, because she does not give a fuck about the morality of whatever's going on. She's just in it for the adventure. Whether that makes her a good person or not, up to you to decide. Probably not, but it's up to you. But that allows the series to really dive into these immensely complex moral dilemmas, where we have Fapata, who is probably very much in her right to take revenge on these people that did this to her mother, but on the same end, these people had to do it to survive in the abyss, and it's been over 100 years at this point, and they've just kind of settled into this lifestyle in this city built on Irumyui's corpse, where they are living comfortably and thriving, and they have their own culture that, for the most part, isn't a hostile culture. it's a very weird culture that's bases everything on the concept of value, but it's not like an outright hostile culture. So, yeah, there again, this is one of those things where I'd have to watch it again because there's just so much nuance and complexity to this that it makes my fucking head spin. And that's what makes this show so fucking good, aside from the really dark shit and the really emotional shit. But yeah, Fapata, I keep drifting off topic. Fapata is just awesome. Again, a lot of that is because of Misaki Kuno doing an immensely strong job with her performance. And just the way that this character constantly has shit taken away from her through no fault of her own, for the most part. And the way that she slowly just... I think it's she. I'm not entirely sure. It's very much coded as she. It could be they, but anyway, the way that Fapata just constantly has stuff taken away, and the way that she just morphs over the course of the series in response to all of these things, both in good and bad ways. Oh my... I really love this character, if I'm being honest. She's great. Now, I think probably the most contentious part of this series would probably be the Miti subplot with Nanachi. Because honestly, it kind of just... that part kind of just, like, fizzles out until the big emotional climax for it, because it's like... I think they bring back Miti after Reg finally killed her in season 1. And so, on the one hand, it feels like we are repeating the same emotional beat as season 1, but I think they do change it up enough for it to be the best it could be, considering those circumstances. It is different enough to feel like we're not just completely retreading new ground, but also there's the part of, like, they're supposed to buy Nanachi back from Belef because Nanachi sells herself to Belef in order to get Miti. But at one point Belef's is just like, you're just free to go. You can just leave. And, I mean, it's because the city is collapsing and the force field is eventually dissipating, and all the stuff that Belef created there is going to disappear because of the force field disappearing. Well, actually, I think it's everybody in the city. Yeah, everyone in the city is eventually going to who has taken their power from the city is going to disappear eventually. So, it is definitely... at least for me, it was the most contentious part. It might be the part that keeps this from being a 10 when we get to the ratings, but we'll get there. I'm going to need to sit on this a little bit more. But, man, this show is just so damn complex and so fucking cool. Especially on the visual end, because holy fucking shit, this is a goddamn beautiful show. This is easily the best looking show of the year that I've seen so far. I haven't seen anything from the fall season yet, obviously, but I doubt anything's going to top this. This is fucking gorgeous. The setting and the background art, much like the first season and the movie, is just so fucking cool and unique and gorgeous in a very grotesque way. The absolute, like, disgustingness of the reds and greens and, like, vomity whites of this city and how it all blends together. It's like the perfect combination of ickiness while also still being really cool. Now, I think this might be the most that Maid in Abyss has made use of CG, but it is definitely only in the most necessary places. Like, it's the only things that I noticed that are in CG are the turbinid dragons, which are there's Tachikata, I forget what his name is, the robotic thing, and then Belaf's snake form are pretty much the only CG things in the series because they are so immensely complex in design. And for the most part, I think the compositing on the CG was still pretty solid overall, so it wasn't a huge distraction. Not really enough for me to like say that it took away from the series in any way. And because even aside from that, fuck, the action scenes in this series are so goddamn good. The overall just character designs are just almost always on point and fucking gorgeous. There's so many different hollow designs in this city. I guess, are they technically hollows? I don't know. Who knows? But just the immense amount of monster designs in this series. I wonder if they got Koyo Shinari to come back for this. I'll have to check to see if he's still doing monster designs. Because now that, well, yeah, I'll have to check to see. But it's so very abyssy, and just so damn gorgeous, and I'm losing it. I've been talking about this series for so goddamn long at this point, but of course I can't leave without talking about the fucking soundtrack because Kevin Penkin is back. It's more Kevin Penkin Made in Abyss music. Although I will say, the insert song he wrote, Gravity. It starts with the same line that starts Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid. It starts with I want to know where the people are. So that was a little distracting if you're familiar with The Little Mermaid to any degree, which I'm not very familiar with The Little Mermaid, but even I still remember that. So that was weird. Aside from that, the song is fucking beautiful, especially when it gets into the gravity section of it. Kevin Penkin's a fucking genius with this stuff. And I love the way he uses bass because that's very much part of this immense darkness to this series. Just the auditory sound of darkness. Yeah. That was just a whole bunch of rambling about Made in Abyss. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed that I would love to talk about, that I might talk about later in a full analysis series. Or one video. Who knows? I definitely want to talk about this series in a more scripted manner. So we'll get to that when the time comes. But in any case, let's go figure out where to put this on the list.
Alright. The last of the summer seasonals is complete. As for where to put it, well, we're going to put it right here in the number 2 spot. And as much as I would love to give it a perfect 10, I think it just barely missed the mark. Just barely. So we're going to give it a strong 9. Still one of the best shows of last season by a long shot. It's fucking good. And that brings us to the end of the summer seasonals. We have now I've now finished 55 shows from this year. And there's still how many left? 42? This is going to take a while. So we'll get to that at some point, and we'll be leading off with Pokemon Journeys, which I might devote an entire video to. We'll see. So join me next time for the seasonal wrap-up show, Fall 2022. please let me just catch up on this shit already. I want out.